Black Wall Street, black oil, green money. A young man, Mr. Rowland, a younger woman, Miss Page, stumbled upon one another in that elevator. Everything changed. May 31, 1921, 18 eyes, a white mob engulfed with white rage. Stumbled upon one another in that elevator. Everything changed. May 31, 1921, 18 eyes, a white mob. Burn it down, burn it all down. A white man running with red blood on his hands. Bring it down, bring it all down. A school, the library, our hospital, my church. Burn it down, burn it all down. My people, our black children, our stars, our hopes. They want to kill us, they still want to kill us. God bless America, God damn America. Burn it down, burn it all down.
Welcome to the They Still Want to Kill Us Artist Talk. I'm Jamilla Deria, Director of the UMass Fine Arts Center. I represent a coalition of arts institutions across the country who support this work and support Daniel. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that this talk is taking place on the ancestral lands of the Lenape people. I'd also like to acknowledge that the events depicted in the film took place on the traditional lands of the Muskogee people. Tonight, I have the distinct pleasure of speaking with composer and activist Daniel Bernard Romain, and he is joined by mezzo-soprano Marian Anderson awardee and Grammy Award winner Janae Bridges. How are both of you?
I'm great.
I'm very well. Yeah, also great.
I just want to thank you on behalf of everyone for this stunningly beautiful and powerful work. How does it feel now that it's out in the world, Daniel?
Well, I mean, I feel great and I feel blessed. I'm privileged to be alive and to be taking breath. I'm here with my collaborator and mentor and teacher in Janae Bridges, who's just a remarkable artist. And we just finished recording They Still Want to Kill Us. So I'm actually hearing it for the first time. Yeah.
And Janae, what attracted you to this project?
Well, there are a few things that attracted me. The first thing is the opportunity and great honor to collaborate with Daniel Bernard Romain. I have been inspired by him since a very young age, and so this opportunity is something that is not lost on me. And as an artist, I believe that I have the duty to spread awareness and knowledge, and be an ambassador for humanity. And They Still Want to Kill Us is a piece that directly aligns with my role in the world.
That's wonderful. Daniel,
Yes.
tell us a little bit more about this piece. I know you were invited to write this aria.
Mhm.
What did you know about the Tulsa Massacre before the project, and what did you discover as you developed the work?
Well, I was invited by Tulsa Opera to write an aria, about 5 minutes long, honoring the horrific Tulsa Race Massacre, and commemorating that event and honoring what was supposed to be this notion of survival and legacy and change and equity. I asked to work with a librettist. There wasn't budget for that. So I took it upon myself to create the libretto, and I've never done that before. And the last two lines of the libretto became problematic for Tulsa Opera, and they asked me to change one word, and I said no. And they said, then your aria will not be performed on the program. So then I said, okay. And the next thing I did was I did what a lot of people do. I started talking about it on social media with my friends and family. And there was an immediate response from the arts community, a loving response, and here we are today.
Thank you for giving us a little bit of that history. I know that, this is not new terrain for you.
Yeah.
You have in the past really talked about state violence on Black life. I know in your last opera, We Shall Not Be Moved, you touched on the topic. Can you talk about sort of what brings you to these, these big social justice issues, and how does that reflect your legacy?
Well, I think Janae said it really well when she talked about being an ambassador for humanity. I mean, my mother taught me, the best thing you can do in life is to give someone the gift of thought or the gift of teaching. Right? That's the best thing you can do. So my mother was my earliest teacher in many ways. And I first met Janae when she was teenager.
Yeah, 19,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, a program called More Music at the More. And
wonderful.
then and now,
Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, Seattle, Washington. Then and now, she was remarkable. And the point of it is that I felt a responsibility to approach my teaching really from a point of contribution. I don't use the word teacher or students. I use the word contributor. We're all contributors to a work classroom in a world of ideas. And in the world of ideas that I have, I long for a shared morality. Will this country ever get to a shared radical morality? So I see my job not only as composer, but as artist, as activist, and as educator, and to lead by example. So, when we're gone, what will remain? these words, this music. And the words tell the story of something that happened, which was a horrific event. It was 18 hours long. A white mob descended on the Greenwood district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they murdered men, women, and children. A white mob murdered black men, women, and children. It's as horrific as it can get. And that's why I said, yes, God should bless America, because I think there's the promise of a shared morality for us all. But let's speak the truth. Whether it's Breonna or George or Trayvon, words have meaning and weight. And that's why it is appropriate to declare God bless America and God damn America.
Well said. I think that does speak to our role and responsibility in this field as cultural workers. Janae, I know that this is also not new ground for you. You've talked about your commitment to not only presenting works that will impact communities, but you want to shine a light on Black composers. Why is that so important to you?
Absolutely. I mean, as an artist, and specifically a vocalist, I feel like I have this gift of voice that instantly has the power to connect with people in a way that other things don't. And so I was raised in a household by an educator. My mother was an educator, my father was in the military, and they made sure that we knew who we were, that we were beautiful, and they were very intentional about exposing us to things in the world that we might not have otherwise been exposed to. We don't learn about the Tulsa Massacre in school. We don't. And so, you know, as I feel like I'm also an educator in that way, you know, like I have the responsibility to not teach, but what did you say? To contribute.
Yeah.
To contribute in that way, and to help people open their minds and their hearts, because in school we are just not taught a lot about the dark history of our country, and I feel like the healing can't happen until we know what we're working with, you know? The things aren't the way they are for no reason. So I just feel very passionately about using my gift to educate and to remind people and make them knowledgeable of where we have come from and where we are because of that, and where we need to hopefully go to.
Sure. And to add to that, you know, in hip hop culture, which this aria is utilizing and incorporating in a lot. I mean, there's elements of funk and soul, and I like to call it Black classical music. You know, in hip hop culture, the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill was a seminal album. It talked about loss and legacy and conflict. But there was a miseducation on Capitol Hill. So education is important. If you understand where the big lies are, then you understand where the whole truth is. And I think that this is what our work is aspiring to, the whole truth.
And I'm glad that you brought up not only this work really bringing awareness to this, you know, atrocity and blight on American history, but it also, the work sort of, it does have touches of funk and hip hop in it. But what about opera? What about the operatic form really lends itself to telling this story?
Well, it was an invitation.
Yeah.
And I also think that at its best, opera is about telling stories. The question isn't about you know, how you tell a story. It's which stories are going to be told.
Right.
So I love the notion of Black people and Black artists telling their stories with their words, in their voices, with their people, for their audiences.
Right.
And everybody else can come in too.
I love that. And I mean, I'll also just add that opera yes, it's telling stories. It's also telling dramatic stories.
Right.
I mean, when you go
Right.
into an opera house
Yeah.
and you hear
Mhm.
some of the stories told, they're about love, death, hate, lust. I mean, you name it. It's life, and so this is a story that needs to be added to the canon, and so many other stories as well, because we have a lot of dramatic stories
Yeah.
that make up our existence in this country.
True. And as you embody the characters as you performed, I know that this story is a little bit closer to our lives, all of us, because this is not only English speaking, but an American story, an African American story. And so how did the sort of the proximity of the story impact your choices?
Yeah, I mean, thank you. That's a great question. I feel like I can more immediately connect emotionally with the libretto and the text and even the music. I can go into a very deep place, which I strive to do with all of the music that I sing. But for me, I mean, I don't necessarily have to imagine that I'm something that I'm not. I kind of just tune in to what already is, and I channel my ancestors through this music, and really it becomes very visceral and real, and it doesn't feel like I'm acting in a way. You know, I'm kind of just the vessel, the vessel that brings this music and story to life, and I feel actually I feel one with this music.
Well, to be clear, Janae as a vessel is one of the most important opera artists working today,
Right.
period. Now, she
Right.
happens to be black. She happens to be a black woman. But this is very important to understand, that when I reached out to Janae, there was no hesitation in wanting to be a part of this project. And I really appreciate that so much because of the controversy surrounding it. And quite frankly, the controversy surrounding my work. You know, I didn't know what you would say. So I'm so humbled that she agreed to be the person to embody the role. And I have to say, as a composer, it's a lonely thing. It's me, a laptop, a keyboard, and headphones, right? Oftentimes in an airplane, or during COVID now, the pandemic, it's been in a bedroom. But to be able to work so closely in true collaboration with one of the most important opera singers in the world today is very humbling. And it says a lot, I think, about this notion of a true global fight for social justice. And I think that's what this piece is trying to speak to. It is speaking to what happened in 1921, but it is certainly speaking to what is happening in 2020.
Yes.
I agree. I think that this work is certainly changing the American story and changing the world. But as you know, two black artists in the classical sphere, what are you hoping? How are you hoping to change the sort of classical field? Are you hoping to change the classical field? I guess is the question.
Yeah, so I mean, absolutely. I love what I do. I love being an opera singer. I think that there are so many stories that must be told.
Yeah.
And as an American opera singer, this is part of, it should be a part of reimagining the canon, That doesn't mean we're going to lose the great traditional operas that we've been singing for hundreds of years. And I think a lot of people have that fear. It's not that at all. It's expanding, the beauty of this art form that we have already.
I think about what if. I think about what if the arts community loved black people? What if the arts community fully embraced BIPOC people?
Yes.
What if the arts community saw equity as the most important endeavor and the most important activities for our field? And what if one day we won't be talking about race the way we have to talk about race now?
Yes.
What if the urgency changed? What if all things truly were equal? What if we uplifted marginalized voices? And I do dream about this notion of a shared morality where all artists and all artists' work well, we can't be the first responders, but we're the second, third, and fourth responders. And I do think there's a value in what we're doing, particularly a value that Black artists are doing. Well, I say it this way: when our politicians and pundits fail us, artists have always led the way.
Yeah.
So
Always.
yeah,
Yeah.
always. So I think that we are all contributors to a sea change, a true change in our arts ecology. And I think that Janae and I are planting the seeds that might form a garden where equity and a shared morality and a true love for one another can grow.
So well said. One last question, Daniel. I know that this work has connected you with the Tulsa community, with the artists, the musicians, the leaders, and the activists down there. Can you talk a little bit? Can you talk a little bit about some of the new connections that you've made?
As a result of me being kind of dismissed by the Tulsa Opera, there are other arts community in Tulsa in which we are in collaboration with, led by, most importantly, Dr. Tiffany Crutcher, who is actually, her family was part of that horrific event. And she is truly connected that community and the community surviving and changing in ways that I think are authentic and real and deeply rooted and important. So I'm really honored to be able to work very closely with her. I'll be going down there to be a part of the commemorative events towards the end of the month. And I think that, look, I proudly serve on the board for the Association of Performing Arts Professionals and the League of American Orchestras. I proudly serve our arts field. I want the best for Tulsa Opera.
Yeah.
I want the best for Jamilla Bridges.
Yes.
And I hope that the arts world wants the best for all of us. I have a biracial son.
Yeah.
I think about Zacharie's future.
Yeah.
And I'm committed to our future of how our arts can truly be a part of our solution and the antidote to so many ills in the world.
And I wish the best for you, Daniel. And I wish the
Me
best
too.
for you, Janae. And thank you for this amazing work. To learn more about what transpired during the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre and the far-reaching and ongoing ramifications of those attacks on the Greenwood community, visit 𝗧𝗛𝗚𝗟.com for a list of educational and historical resources. And to learn more about the present-day movement to bring justice to the last 3 known living survivors and the many descendants of the massacre, visit justiceforgreenwood.org. The Justice for Greenwood Foundation is a network of activists, attorneys, volunteers, experts, and descendants seeking accountability, financial compensation, publication, and greater truth-telling around the facts and legacy of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre.